Hello everyone, today is 26th of February. Now it's 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is first part of today's first news update in which I will share quite a number of news about some major developments that Russian media and public pay attention to. For second part, please check out my Patreon page or page on Boosty. Links are on this video description box and in the pinned commenter. I hope you will subscribe and become a Patreon for this project if you like my work and want to support. There are plenty of content on my Patreon, and content will be even more shortly. Dear friends, I will start with a short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. Well, last night, early hours of this morning, Russian air defense systems intercepted 128 drones that were launched by Kiev regime, I'm quite sure, with assistance of at least a number of European NATO member states, UK and France first of all. To be more precise, 83 drones were intercepted in the Krasnodar region, 30 drones over the Crimea, 8 drones over the aquatory of the Azov Sea, 5 drones over the aquatory of the Black Sea, and 1 drone over the Bryansk region and 1 drone over the Kursk region. Governor of the Krasnodar region, Veniamin Kondratyev, earlier stated that region is under heavy strike or heavy attack of Kiev regime's drones, and civilian infrastructure was damaged in number of settlements. Although at this point there are no reports about casualties, and hopefully it will stay this way. Largest scale of drone attack on Russia, long-range drone strikes on Russia since the beginning of this year 2025. During the day, most likely we will receive some additional information about these strikes. Maybe some drones managed to bypass air defense systems and target some more areas, civilian or industrial or military. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information in my next updates and on my Telegram and Twitter X pages. Also, dear friends, when it comes to line of contact, reports are coming in that Kiev regime is deploying special forces of main intelligence directorate and units of several brigades in the western flank of Zaporozhye sector, where to stabilize Frontline, as I reported earlier in previous updates, Russian troops several days ago move into Pitikhatki settlement, which is this one here, by the way, and establish operational control over this settlement. Russian troops might move further towards Lapkova, and well, I guess Kiev regime did scare that Russia might start some sectoral scale offensive operation in this direction towards Kamenskaya, let's say, and that's why exactly in this direction in Kamenskaya was deployed these special forces of main intelligence directorate and units of at least 2 brigades. Let's see how the situation will develop in this direction. In South Donetsk sector of the front line, Russian troops further improving positions in area of Velika and Novoselka. On the northern flank of this settlement, Russian troops entered Skudnae village, and according to some reports, clearing operation is underway, and most likely today, tomorrow, this settlement will become under full Russian control. And Russian troops are also creating yet another cold room, at least that's my reading of the big picture, from Novoselka settlement on the southern western side of Velika Novoselka, and from Skudnae and potentially Volnae Polye, Privolnae and Burlatskaya will end up in a cold room, and units of the Kiev regime that are located in this area in relatively a short time. Also, reports are coming in about further progress of the Russian armed forces in Chisov Yar direction. Russian troops advanced some 2 kilometers on the southern, according to reports, on the southern flank of Chisov Yar. Battles for this strategically important town continues, obviously. Also, reports are coming in that Kiev regime launched their local scale offensive operations towards Toretsk. There was a two direction of their attack. Two armored groups entered actually Toretsk. One group was completely destroyed on the southern western part of this most western district of Toretsk, south of Stadium, but another group, according to reports, managed to reach a Stadium area, and even though with significant losses, but survivors of that group entered these high-rise apartment buildings right next to Stadium. So I guess today Russian troops in Toretsk will be busy to completely neutralize this armored group of Kiev regime that managed to enter Toretsk. Also, Russian troops further improving positions in Kupyansk direction, and reports are that forward units of the Russian armed forces even entered Kupyansk on the northern eastern side, although obviously before main offensive operation begins. I mean, at least several weeks will take preparation of the ground for that, but Russian troops clearly improving positions significantly, not just on the left bank of the Oskol River, but also on the right bank of the Oskol River, and Russian troops are conducting offensive operations towards most northern western districts of the Kupyansk. Despite attempts of Kiev regime to slow down Russian offensive on the right bank of the Oskol River, all the attempts are failing, and Russian troops are gaining momentum in this direction, and there are major developments are happening in the Kursk salient area, dear friends. We are receiving reports about complete collapse of Kiev regime's defense lines in several directions in this borderline area. And according to latest reports, Russian troops established control over the Lebedevka settlement, and clearing operation is underway. This is a major development, obviously, in this direction, because main supply and support after liberating Sverdlikova, and now after liberating Lebedevka, obviously main supply and support line of Kiev regime's forces in the Suja and surrounding area is under direct fire control of the Russian troops. And on the northern side of this salient, according to latest reports, Russian armed forces establish full control over the Pogrebki settlement, over the Orlovka settlement, and over the Nova Sorochina settlements. In Nova Sorochina, clearing operation is underway, but well, 4 settlements in last 12 to 24 hours being liberated. This is if this is not a clear indicator that Kiev regime's grouping of forces and NATO mercenaries are no longer able to maintain their defense lines, then I don't know what can be. Right? Clearly, defense lines of this invading force is collapsing, and I have quite a good reasons, based on many indicators, to predict that in several weeks' time, Russian armed forces will close this Kursk trap and will neutralize all the invading forces that will fail to flee the territory before that. So significant progress in Kursk salient direction, and the reports are coming in, by the way, that Kiev regime is preparing complete withdrawal of this invading force, of the remnants of the invading force from Kursk salient. This was reported by RIA Novosti news agency based on its sources in Russian security services. This is not the first time when we are receiving such reports. Earlier, Ukrainian sources, including Anatoly Shary, Ukrainian journalist, did report that Kiev regime is preparing withdrawal of the troops from this area. A number of other sources have said the same. Now we have this report from RIA Novosti that there are some indicators on the ground that Kiev regime is preparing withdrawal, because after, as I already said, after Russian troops liberated Sverdlikova settlement, and now this another one on the northern eastern side of Sverdlikova, Lebedevka, isn't it? Name is Lebedevka, yes. Main supply and support line of Kiev regime's forces under direct fire control, and Kiev regime is struggling to conduct rotations. And this is the main reason why General Staff of Armed Forces of Zelensky is considering to withdraw troops. Reports are that if earlier Kiev regime was able to conduct rotations on a scale of entire battalions, now barely company level rotations are taking place, and even then those companies are losing up to 20% or more of its military personnel just during the rotation process itself. So therefore, well, I can see logic behind this report that due to objective realities on the ground, Kiev regime might start considering to withdraw whatever troops they have left in that area. But yet again, this is not the first time such reports are coming in, so therefore we should take this information with a pinch of salt also. Let's see, I mean, next several days, several weeks will clear the picture better. Also, we are receiving reports that Russian armed forces during the previous 24 hours conducted long-range precise strikes on Kiev-controlled territory against the military and logistics infrastructure of Zelensky's terrorist regime, and this time main target of Russian long-range missiles and the drones were military airfields of the Kiev regime. Russian Defense Ministry confirmed this information and stated that all the targets were neutralized, which might be the indicator that during these strikes Kiev regime possibly lost some more planes from remnants of its air force, maybe even Western produced F-16s and Mirage 2000 planes, although no specifics being provided by Defense Ministry. We also have this report from RT that Kremlin contradicts Trump on NATO troops in Ukraine. Yesterday I reported, dear friends, about statements of Trump that according to him, during his conversation with Putin, Russian president, Putin did not oppose deployment of European troops of European NATO member states into Ukraine. I questioned that report straight away because it was not logical. All the statements from Russian high-ranking officials, including Russian president, were indicating that NATO troops in Ukraine, especially eastwards of Western, outside of Western Ukraine, let's say, is completely unacceptable for Russia, and even deployment of NATO troops in Western Ukraine should be obviously done with cooperation with Russia. Right? And therefore, I was skeptical that Trump's information was correct. And it is the case, by the way. Clearly, it is the case. Obviously, Russian media did pay attention to the statement of the Trump, and press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, was asked about it, and he said that no changes, by the way, in our principal stance of Russia in regards to these temporary ceasefires or the deployment of NATO troops into Ukraine. Let's go through this news for a little more details. The Kremlin has contradicted the claim by the US President Donald Trump that Russia would accept their placement of troops from NATO countries in Ukraine under possible peace deal. When pressed by journalists on Monday about Russian President Vladimir Putin's opinion on the possibility of Western troops deploying to Ukraine, Trump said he will accept that. I have asked him that question. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalists on Tuesday, however, that Moscow's position has not changed since Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's description the week before of the presence of armed forces from NATO countries, even under the EU flag or as a part of national contingents, as a completely unacceptable to Moscow. Trump insisted he had specifically asked Putin that question regarding the deployment. And then quote, he has no problem with it. Trump said while talking to the press following his meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron in Washington. I said yesterday straight away that something was wrong with that reporter. Maybe Trump was confused or maybe he interpreted their conversation, certain episodes of conversation with Putin, wrongly. His interpretations quite often is quite wild. We all know that. And he's been accused many times of lying, maybe not intentionally, but yet again, if you are making interpretations, free interpretations of certain information that you are receiving, that you might got it wrong time to time, and I guess this is exactly the case. Trump was wrong on that, right? And Russia is still completely opposes deployment of any NATO troops under whatever pretext or umbrella into Ukraine. And I will specify, if I may, that this stand is especially essential when it comes to outside of Western Ukraine. Western Ukraine can be topic of negotiations potentially, right? But because I believe once this conflict will end, Western Ukraine eventually will end up under NATO control and will be claimed by Poland, Hungary, Romania, or potentially even Bulgaria and Slovakia. You know my take on that topic, isn't it? But rest of the territory of this former Soviet Republic is a historical Russia, right? And obviously, Moscow will never ever accept deployment of NATO troops in those areas. It's just that simple. So it was clear to me straight away that maybe Trump was just misinterpreting something there. And Peskov confirmed my take on the situation. Anyways, let's continue. TASS News Agency is reporting that, Europe to be responsible for aiding Ukraine in the future. This was also a statement from the Trump. Dear friends, I will meanwhile check the time to make sure that this update is in about 35 minutes. The rest of the news that I have prepared will be published in the second part of update on my Patreon and Boosty shortly after I will publish this video on YouTube and Rumble. Anyways, let's go through this news now. US President Donald Trump stated in a conversation with reporters in the Oval Office, as quoted by the White House press pool, that European countries will bear their primary responsibility for assisting Ukraine, while the United States is not currently sending anything to Kiev. Trump was asked if he would support Ukraine in the future, and then quote here, I think Europe will largely be responsible for that. We are not providing anything, it's about Europe too. The president noted, we have a very good talk with Russia, we had a very good talk with Ukraine. He added, yet again, whenever Trump talks about some topics, quite often it is some more clarification is needed, because Zelensky, for example, a few days ago did said that Ukraine is, or Kiev regime, let's say, is still receiving weapons from US. Although he specified that these weapons deliveries were allocated or approved during the Biden's administration. So maybe Trump means that he did not approve any military aid deliveries to Kiev regime, but yet again, he is a president of US, and without his knowledge, without his approval, I don't think even military aid packages that was approved by Biden can be shifted out of US. Probably new administration also have to have a say in that matter, isn't it? But possibly Trump means that new military aid packages have not been approved for Kiev regime under his administration. That's how I understand. You tell me, dear friends, what is your reading of or interpretation of the Trump's statements? And when it comes to Europe, when it comes to European members of their NATO and their part in providing Kyiv regime with weapons and money. Just yesterday, isn't it? I reported yesterday, day before, I reported about additional billions and billions of worth of military aid package that number of European states and also Canada did promise to Kyiv regime. And well, unfortunately, European elites are still very much for prolongation of this proxy war against Russia, and it is highly likely that money and weapons flow to Kyiv regime will continue at least for some time. It is good to know that Trump, his administration, did not yet at least approve any additional military aid package from Ukraine to terrorist regime of Zelensky. Meanwhile, also interesting news here from RT that Kyiv has agreed to Trump's mineral deal. Kyiv has agreed to US President Donald Trump's mineral deal. Financial Times, Bloomberg, and IFP reported on Tuesday. The document could be signed as early as this Friday, according to IFP, citing anonymous Ukrainian officials. And reports are, dear friends, that Zelensky will fly to US either tomorrow or on Friday to Washington to meet with Trump. And if that reports are correct, then probably Zelensky himself will sign that agreement. Question is, why Washington needs that? Zelensky is a not legit president, right? And whatever agreement Zelensky will sign will be questioned always. So I guess some US will try to put some mechanisms in that agreement. For example, that State Rada of Ukraine have to ratify agreement. That will give it some more legitimacy, because State Rada is a legit institution. State Rada is a parliament, by the way, there. So according to Ukraine's constitution, during the martial law, only can be prolonged legitimacy of the State Rada or parliament. This is not applies to institution of the president, and that's why Zelensky is illegitimate, right? But State Rada is. Anyways, we have some more information here. Now government officials are working on the details. As of now, we are considering a visit to Washington for Friday to sign an agreement. The officials in Kyiv reportedly said that Trump has been demanding the equivalent of some 500 billion worth of natural resources as a compensation for aid provided to Kyiv throughout the conflict with Russia. Initially presented by the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on visit to Kyiv earlier this month, Ukraine leader Vladimir Zelensky rejected their proposal, citing a lack of security guarantees. Financial Times said that the Ukrainians agreed to sign the deal after the US dropped demands for rights to 500 billion in proceeds from the resources. Kyiv had been disputing the figure, insisting that Washington actually provided Ukraine with only 100 billion in aid. Anyways, at this point, seems like no one really knows what this agreement is all about, what is going to be put in that agreement. Let's wait a couple of days. Once this agreement is signed, probably public will learn some more. Although I wouldn't be surprised if certain parts of those agreements will be classified. From what we learned until now is that some fund will be created, and proceeds from sales of Ukraine's resources, some 50% maybe, will be transferred to that fund. And as far as I know, US wants 100% control over that fund. But yet again, there are too many rumors around this agreement. Let's wait and see. Will US resume military or will Trump's administration will start approving additional new military aid packages to Kyiv regime after this agreement is signed or not? That's a question that I am interested in personally, because otherwise all this agreement don't really means nothing, because I'm 100% convinced, by the way, once this conflict will end, maximum western parts of the so-called Ukraine will end up under control of West, and the rest of the territory will either join Russia after referendums, let's say Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, potentially Sumy, Chernigov region, maybe some other regions, and some other parts, potentially Kiev surrounding few regions, might maintain quasi-statehood, landlocked quasi-statehood, but exclusively in Russian sphere of interest. Right? So US or European states will have no say there. And that's why I think some other game being played by Washington with these contracts. Maybe once this conflict will end, Washington will try to negotiate with Russia that, you know what, we had agreement in place, and now because you are in charge of those territories, you know what, let's do business together. Maybe that's the game plan that White House has, to have some favorable contracts, let's say, with the Russian side in regards to works on this rare earth or whatever resources are there. Potentially this is the game plan of the White House. But anyways, let's wait and see. Meanwhile, by the way, TASS news agency is reporting that EU also wants to sign an agreement with Kiev on natural resources that former Ukraine or former Soviet Republic Ukraine had. EU wants to compete with the US in this strange game. Okay, I don't think EU has much chances to compete against US, but they are trying. This was reported by Figaro, by the way. And because of this interest from EU towards natural resources, I guess Zelensky was a little bit emboldened, and that's why he acted extremely crazy when Treasury Secretary of US was visiting Kiev. Reports are that Zelensky was shouting at him or something like that. Some crazy stuff, by the way, and Zelensky refused to sign the agreement at that point. Now information is becoming open that EU wants its share, piece of that natural resources, but yet again, EU or US or whomever, they have to talk. Eventually, they will have to talk to Russia, because all these territories will be liberated. This is yet again outside of Western Ukraine. All that territory is historical Russia, and will be either a part of Russia again, or in a zone of Russian sphere of influence, exclusive sphere of Russian influence. And in any case, Washington, Brussels, everyone else will have to talk to Moscow. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, according to Roscongress, most rich areas with natural resources in this former Soviet Republic, Ukraine, is already under Russian control. I reported about it earlier. And, well, due to high interest towards the topic nowadays, obviously media outlets are paying attention to it also. So Ukraine lost significant parts of their most profitable mineral deposits after the DPR, LPR, Zaporozhye and Kherson regions become a part of Russia, according to a report by Roscongress, which was reviewed by RIA Novosti. So yes, it is factual, by the way. It is factual that most parts of the Ukraine that were rich and still are rich with all sorts of minerals all sorts of resources from coal to rare earth materials already being liberated by Russian forces, and other parts, Dnipropetrovsk region, for example, will be liberated shortly. So yet again, this information just confirms what I just said a minute ago, that in any case, Washington, Brussels, or whomever will have an interest to, work in this field of, natural resources, rare earth, and so on. Will have to talk to Moscow and cooperate. RT is also reporting that, Russia once again reiterated that militarist EU has no place at Ukraine peace negotiating table. The aggressive position of the Ukraine's EU backers makes them unfit to take part in the peace process. The Russian Foreign Ministry said on Tuesday their desire to push divisive narratives will only harm their own relations with the international community, according to a foreign ministry. And hardly anyone will argue with that. It is logical that these extremely hostile so-called elites in Europe deserve no place at the negotiating table. It's just too simple, right? Moscow and Washington will deal with this issue without any further unnecessary parties. Also, dear friends, yesterday some media outlets, Western ones first of all, including Die Welt, reported about yet another round of talks between Russia and US that supposed to take place in Riyadh. I reported earlier, a couple of days ago, that Russian Foreign Ministry denied these claims that there were any talks planned for 25th of February. But still, Western media outlets were further pushing this narrative. I don't know why. And yesterday was 25th, and there was no talks, official talks at least, between Russia and the US. And Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation reacted on these claims of different media outlets about talks in Riyadh and stated that no official delegation from Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation was involved in any talks in Riyadh. There was no such talks. Potentially some representatives of different state institutions in US, in Russia, are in communication, maybe even on daily basis, to prepare ground for next meeting of the delegations of the two countries, also for a future meeting of the two presidents. But when it comes to second round of talks, yesterday there was no such a development in Riyadh. And dear friends, I guess I will end this update on this news. I have I have prepared quite a number of some more news, which will be published in second part of this update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And yet again, if you are looking for more news from Russia, more commentary, if you like my work and want to support, I hope you will consider to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And if you want to support, you can support through other means also, with donations through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or with the crypto. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And dear friends, please don't forget to click that like button and leave some commentary. This is also very important. This is the only way we can try and influence algorithm in some positive ways, or maybe my video will end up in recommendations. So yes, that's been said, this is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.